Hello, everyone, and it is finally CyHawk, baby. How we feeling?
Feeling good. Feeling great.
Hello, everyone. Uncle Joe has made his return for the CyHawk game.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, my God.
Between that and the boomer way of having to play the music not from your computer, that made it there, Joey.
Hey, I've been gone for a while. I know we haven't fixed all the technical issues, so I made it as simple as possible.
We're never, ever going to fix all of it because, frankly, we don't care that much.
They've probably gotten worse.
Exactly. So, well, I appreciate everyone that's going to join us here tonight. Joey, I'm loving the we own the color black.
Hell yeah.
You can tell, honestly, I think this has kind of been one of the tamer CyHawks I've been in for a while. There hasn't been a lot of shit talking lately.
The older we get, the tamer and tamer it gets, it seems like. Almost like we learn to respect each other when we're not in college and throwing beer cans at each other.
See, we've talked about this before on the podcast. So, like, Twitter this week is unbearable. And I haven't found that this week.
Right?
Yeah. No, usually
That's for sure.
it is unbearable. Someone goes way over the line. I think both fan bases have just realized our teams aren't the greatest. we don't. Neither of us have great offenses. We know it's going to kind of probably be a boring game, and we'll talk about that more when we actually get to it. But I think we're all just kind of content with where we're at right now.
I would 100% agree with that.
So
Yeah.
Well, and say, we'll jump into it here so we can actually talk more into the game here. But you know me, I got to be a fucking nerd and start with a trivia question here. This one actually should be pretty simple because he got it this weekend. But who is the only head coach in college football to win 100 games at two different universities?
Mac Brown.
There we go.
Oh, nice.
Both schools?
Texas and
UNC
UNC?
and Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe we got to UNC that quick.
So when I heard that he got to 100 wins at UNC this weekend, I thought the same thing. I'm like, I don't feel like he's been there long enough to have even coached 100 games.
Right. Was he there before?
No, I mean, this has all been one fell swoop, but I mean, he's just been there. Honestly, he's been there long enough where he didn't make enough noise. In North Carolina, I mean, it's kind of like, well, until this recent weekend, who pays attention to Duke football? No one. No one ever pays attention to, North Carolina football until now. All of a sudden, they got Drake May and Sam Howell, and I mean, he's got him being a legit program over there.
Yep.
North Carolina, come on, raise up, take your shirt off, twist around your head like a helicopter.
Petey Pie.
That was his celebration
Mm-hmm.
in the locker room. He was waving around his old man boobs, swinging around too. But hey, when you get to 200 wins at 100 wins at two different schools, I mean, you can fling them wherever you want, man.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
So, well, I want to get through a couple things because honestly, it's two things I really don't want to talk about, and they're kind of done and over with. But this actually just came out this afternoon. Iowa State Gamblers. I meant to put Iowa, but Deckers, Remsburg, Dodge Saucer, who's now at Iowa Central. Aaron Blum, and I apologize, there's the fifth Iowa guy. They all pled guilty to underage gambling, so they actually took a lesser charge. And guess what? The world kept moving. So it kind of makes me question for our schools, what the fuck was this this investigation and everything all about, man?
Yeah, and right now, it's like, okay, you pled guilty and your punishment's going to be lessened. Is anybody I don't know about Iowa, but in the Iowa State fan base going, oh, we want those guys back? I don't see it.
Not for the most part. I will say there are a lot of wrestlers that are starters that got hit with this, and they haven't came out with their sentencing yet, which is stupid. I think I heard you guys say it last week. Why was it Iowa? Why was it this state that had to, just randomly pick to investigate into this shit? I'm sure it goes on everywhere that legal gambling or gambling is legal. It's just asinine. If you want to take this money from these gambling sponsors and stuff, kids are going to use it. It's legal. As long as they're not betting on themselves, who the fuck cares?
Mm-hmm.
But that was the thing. A lot of them were.
Oh, yeah.
against the team.
Yeah.
I don't know. That one it also it would kind of be interesting because something like this, and this is where it gets way into politics. But it's like if you're going to be the only state that goes into this and you're going deep in investigation, putting all the resources in, I want to know how much money was wasted on this. I want to know how much money was put into these investigations. What did the state get out of it? Where it's like we should do this again. Here is the profitable side of it. If the point of the investigation was to go underage kids do some illegal shit. Whoa, boy, geez, good thing we're all sitting down while we heard that news.
We got him.
And
Book them, Dano.
I'm in
Yeah.
I'm in Ames, and I don't want to implicate any of the athletes here, but the rumor is some of them drink when they're under 21 too.
No.
Don't spread this to anyone else. All our dozens of listeners out here, But I mean, like nothing came of it, man. All it did was just piss a bunch of people off. Sadly, I mean, I hate to say it, I think Iowa State's for the better right now with these new, just ripping the Band-Aid and moving forward. But like, what a kick in the pants to these kids. And now, like, if Deckers does want to come back, I mean, he's going to transfer out. I mean, I don't think he comes back to Iowa State. And all these other kids, I think Remsburg was a senior. I mean, their careers is over now, unless they want to go through it all at a different school one more time.
Yeah, and what really sucks is, like you're saying, it's basically done. They're basically over. You don't hear about this stuff unless someone's like domestic abuse and shit like that. And I mean, even that gets forgiven. And now, like, I don't think any of these kids are going to play again anywhere for lesser crimes than that have been committed by other people before, just because it's a state thing. I don't know. I hate it. I hate the ruling. I hate that, Iowa was the only state to even go after the kids. Like, they should have been a national thing if they were going to do this.
I agree.
It's everywhere.
It just sucks.
It's everywhere. I mean, they did Iowa, all different positions, different sports, different schools. So you cannot tell me that it doesn't go on literally everywhere else.
Exactly.
I think Trent will agree with me. I think we need to investigate Caitlin Clark. I think she's betting the over on her points every game.
Yep.
That's why she's putting in so many buckets.
Yep.
I heard that she just spends so much time in the gym. She's a hard worker. She's, a blue collar player. That's why she's so good. Nothing else.
Is she a coach's son, gym rat?
Coach's daughter, Brian.
My bad. Oops.
She's a coach's them. I don't know.
There we go. I don't know if you guys heard before the weekend. ACC now stands for All Coast Conference. Stanford, Cal, and SMU joined the ACC at a reduced rate for the next, I believe, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, is that a joke, or are they really changing their name?
No, I made that up.
Okay.
Though it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, really.
Right. How nice would it be to be at a school like SMU where you just forfeit 7, I heard 9, but it's either 7 or 9 years of TV rights because your boosters are so fucking rich. I mean, I heard that they were with that TV deal, they'd make about 50 to 60 million. Last I heard, their NIL conglomerate thing might be in the upper $100-200 million when it gets set up now that they're in a Power 5. Like, that's insane.
Wow.
That is insane.
Yeah.
They don't need that TV money.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked that SMU is paying athletes now, legally at least. But yeah. So how this is going to work, because I believe from everything that I've been reading, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, they're out of there as soon as they can. And I think they're going to look for a way either to make it synonymous for all the votes, make it hell for everyone else, but they wanted to make sure they're stable. So the Big 12 didn't feast on whoever was left. The Big 10 took their pieces, if it's not Florida State, Clemson. But these schools are taking reduced rates. So Stanford and Cal, they're getting the ESPN and Fox are paying pro rata. So they're getting the full share for all three of these schools. But Stanford and Cal are only going to get paid 30% of that. SMU is foregoing all of theirs. So it's about $74 million that gets spread amongst the remaining, math's doing 14 schools. Yep. So, I mean, they're all getting a few more million per year because of this move. So for like the Syracuses and Boston colleges, it makes sense. You'd vote for that anytime, But I know Clemson and Florida State, they're just hating it because they want Big Ten money. Who the hell doesn't,
Yeah, it's got to be a crawl in their in their crotch that like Indiana, Purdue, Rutgers are all making 30 to 40 million a year with the Big Ten deal.
More.
And they're making that over like 8-9 years. It's the ACC and Pac-12, man, the best decision-making conferences in the country, babe.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that. I mean, the shitty thing is when the ACC signed that contract, they were kind of on unstable ground at that point, and they did the smart thing to stabilize for almost 2 decades. And now all of a sudden they're seeing your mark with the short-term the Big 12 deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the Big 10 just swoop in as well as the SEC. Everyone got all this money before it had dried up, and that's where Pac-12 didn't have any chance at this point because Big 12 took what they turned down, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It'll be very interesting to see how these moves. Unfortunately, they're going to continue, and what I think is sadly going to happen is pretty soon we're going to start seeing the uneven revenue again, or I'm almost wondering if the Northwesterns and the Indianas are no longer going to have spots at the table. Vanderbilt's that they don't provide anything. They provide like the GPAs and some lesser sports, but I'm wondering if the football schools will slowly just start moving away.
Yeah, there'll be some teams in 7 years get kicked out of those conferences for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When this whole realignment thing comes around again.
I think the realignment with all what's happening right now, like I could easily see, like after all these deals are done in 8-9 years, I could easily see 10 years, there's no more conferences. We just go by strictly areas or true geographical areas of the U.S. Like I think that wouldn't be a conference. That's just your area. Like, and then each school is just each school is then responsible for making their own schedule instead of conference schedules.
Yeah, they need to, first and foremost, just separate football from everything else. Football needs to be its own tier of sports, and then you could go to like the regional, especially if it's going to be all controlled by TV rights anyway. Like, I'm pretty sure I texted about this. Have the ESPN conference, have the Fox conference, have 2 divisions in each one of those, and then play, a playoff with those divisions. It's going to be controlled by ESPN and Fox at some point anyway, unless Apple or Google and all that stuff jumps in as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, Yormark's been talking about this since he's joined the Big 12 or the Big 12 last year. He's been ahead of the curve with trying to get these football power. He's stabilized the conference. He's been trying to get Gonzaga and UConn and some of these basketball only members to get in because I think he's and on all once you're to that level, Commissioner, you're all going to see it. But like I think he's the first one that goes, we're going to be okay with being number 3 at football.
Right.
We're right now I think number 3. We're going to be number 1 in basketball. We're going to get Gonzaga. We're going to try and get St. John's. They're going to try and get these Villanovas and screw it. We'll be number 3 here. We're going to be number 1 in basketball. And then when it does divide out, I mean, I think we're sitting in a beautiful spot right now in the Big 12. It's all going to depend on, well, if everyone stays happy, the ones that are coming in. But I unfortunately, like you said, I think football is slowly going to be everything else, and then Olympic sports are going to be a completely different pool.
Yep. And if anything else, I could see like men's and women's basketball breaking off as well. And as you mentioned, like with the Big 12 being quote unquote number 3 in football, it's a way larger gap for them to become, the big power in football than it is for them to be the big power in basketball. I mean, you already got KU. That whole conference is stacked in basketball regardless. But then you throw in, powers like you were saying, Villanova, Gonzagas of the world, like the UConns of the world. There's no touching that. I mean, the ACC is probably second best basketball conference, followed by the Big Ten, then the SEC. You can't even come close to the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Dave, you got anything on that?
No, well said.
I agree. It'll just be interesting how that turns out because, like if you got to compare what the Big 12 can potentially bring in for a basketball only contract, and you talk to Gonzaga going, hey, do you want your peanuts over there in the WCC playing Pepperdine?
Mm-hmm.
Or you want to kind of get your ass kicked a little bit more, but you're playing in a big boy conference and your athletic budget might double or triple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I have no clue what their numbers are, but I'm sure as hell going to guess that joining the Big 12 in a basketball only situation or a Big 10 or whatever it would be a lot more lucrative.
Right.
I mean, hell, honestly, the Big 10's in a more prime spot right now with having Oregon and Washington out there to have Gonzaga as a basketball only.
Yep.
You know.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
the last thing I want to say about realignment, from my perspective, is it is amazing being the big fan of a Big Ten team right now, because I mean it's like playing Monopoly with all the money in Boardwalk and Park Place. You just sit there and wait for the rest of the people to die off, and then give me the money, give me the money.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's you're playing Monopoly and you just get the stack of 500s right away at the beginning, and everyone else can go up and downs with their little 20s and 50s. And yeah, you might lose a 500 occasionally, and then you're just eventually going to sweep it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Unfortunately, we're heading closer to the Power 2 or Power 3 right now, and hopefully, I don't know. I think Yormark's got us in the right situation, but I don't know, man. It's kind of slowly taken away from college sports, as further than what we were when we were younger.
Oh yeah.
So, but let's actually talk about something positive, something not that we've been discussing forever. A terrible. Let's just talk about football.
Yes.
We've been yammering for 17 minutes, and let's make sure we overreact to some things. And I think that's why Trent hopped off. He said he got kicked, but I think it's because we're about to talk about Colorado potentially.
Hell yes, we are.
Let's start with it, Joey. How much do you love Dion?
I will give Trent credit. About halfway through the first quarter, I'm like, Jesus, if this is how they talk about him, till the end of the season, this is going to get real old real quick. But when your quarterback comes in, throws over 500 yards, has 4 or 5 touchdowns, you have 4 receivers over 100 yards. Travis Hunter plays 129 snaps, has 119 yards receiving. Like, they just looked good. They rose to the test. So I think that they'll ride this wave of momentum, like go undefeated, blah, blah, blah. No, I do think they're going to go bowling this year, which if you tell me Colorado goes bowling after winning 1 game last year, that's that coach of the year right there, man. That is amazing. He cleaned fucking house and just brought them back into bowling. And I mean, TCU obviously isn't what they were last year, but holy fuck, that was an entertaining game. We'll see what happens. Colorado, I mean, I don't think they're going to legitly compete out in the Pac-12 for like a playoff spot or anything like that, but they could upset some teams. I mean, you put them up against USC, the Washingtons of the world. Washington's got a little bit better defense than USC, but I can't wait for Colorado USC. That's going to be like 70 to 85, something like that. It's going to be a fucking shootout galore. Like, there's no tackling, no touch. They're just touchdowns all day.
I tried to rip the flag off of them.
Game, Dave?
Hell yeah.
At the very beginning, like when they hired him, the hype, I thought, or the speculation, whatever you want to call it, I was just like, yeah, that's good. Nothing's going to happen. I really do think I might jump on that train a little bit. Like, that was one hell of a game. Like, it was just interesting. It was fun to watch some team I never really planned on ever watching come out and do what they did. And I think Dion, he might be, like Joey said, if he takes him bowling and does a few other great things, maybe he does get coach of the year.
I looked at it the last week. The lowest amount of wins that a coach of the year has won is I believe it was the Colorado coach back in 2001. He went 10-4. So if Dion just goes bowling and he gets national coach of the year, which I mean, he'll be Pac-12 coach of the year. I mean, I don't even know if there's a question unless one of them goes to the playoffs.
Right.
But if he gets national coach of the year, I'm going to have to side with Trent. It is the prime effect because, I mean, I have a number in front of me. 7.3 million people watched that game. And it was probably the best game of the weekend just watching-wise. Just amazing game. I'm gonna lean a little bit more on Trent just so we're not gargling like the announcers in the actual game, because they did amazing. But he just does some, like, he seemed. I'm not sure, man. First thing I noticed. First off, did you know his son's the quarterback?
Yep.
And that people
Yep.
doubted him in high school.
Yep.
Yeah, he had
Crazy.
to talk about that. His son was a 4-star
Mhm.
and was getting recruited. He just went to play for his dad. You know, he doesn't have captains. I don't know if you saw in the corner they have
Yeah.
this little D and a little L. You guys know what those stand
The
for?
leaders and the dogs.
Yep. Hell yeah, baby.
Those I thought that was the new divisions of the Big Ten Conference.
God, I wish that would. I hope he patents that. Makes some more money for Colorado that they can't pay him.
But like that's the kind of this is what I'm going to tell you, man. So Dion says it's cool. If Dabo Sweeney said we don't have captains, we have leaders and dogs, you would say that's the corniest shit you've ever heard in your life. And because it's Dion, though, it's cool.
But you have to factor in that Dion was cool before everything else was cool. I mean, back at Florida State and shit, he was the man. Like back when boxing was, like big ass robes and flashy cars and shit. Dion just fed into that, and he's from Florida. I mean, they're all a little off down there anyway, so I can attest to that. Being in Orlando last week during a hurricane, it was crazy. But yeah, it's the very much the Dion effect, and I think he's worth every penny they can pay him. Like, he's going to get the recruits. Kids are, I mean, we've all been 18, 19-year-old kids that are, looking at who we're looking up to and stuff. They're going to eat that shit up. He's going to get all kinds of recruits. He's going to get people there. He's doing his job, and it's a good shtick. I mean, it's no different than like a WWE character and stuff. I know it's going to get old. It's going to get old quick. For us middle-aged white guys in the Midwest, it's going to get old quick. But
damn it.
Yeah, teenage kids that are going to play athletics, man, Colorado is going to skyrocket, and they're going to do it quick, I think.
But by the way, I just got to be a little bit of a hater because we can't just all love it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's coming to the Big 12, man. That's gonna make everything look that much better when they move over next year. So like I am for this, but I wrote it in here so I didn't forget this. I am calling this right now because they're gonna be. I mean, first off, the spread versus Nebraska, I believe, is 3 right now. I got Colorado covering it. I know TCU's first off. That was the TCU team last year. Because it reminded me of Iowa State a couple years ago when they won all their one-score games, and then last year they lost all their one-score games. Right. This is the same TCU team. They just did. They have slightly worse defense, and Travis Hunter and Sanders were great in that game, and they won by 3. So Colorado's defense is going to lose them some games as well, and that's not what's getting talked about. I'm going to tell you right now, if they go into that USC game 3-0 and they lose, all of a sudden, it's going to be the media is mean to Deion Sanders again. But I'm going to tell you right now, he's not going to call it a loss. His team don't lose. We got wins and we got lessons. I'm telling you, he will call them lessons right now.
Oh, he already said it. He already said that he was.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, that was part of. I thought you got that from his interview, his post game. That's what he calls them.
Oh shit! Honestly, maybe it was subconscious, but I just know he will never, because you know how he is, and that's the smart way. You don't ever lose. Deion's never nothing negative. Mm-hmm. It's a lesson, dog. Right. We're learning the lesson. We're climbing that hill, baby. Yep. You're just throwing some superlatives like that, and like you said, recruits are going to gobble that shit up, man.
Did you hear it's Shedeur, right? Shedeur Sanders. Yeah. Did you hear his post game interview talking about how he's not even going to look at his highlights. He's only looking at, things he can work on. There's a lot of mistakes that were made, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're just saying all the right things, guys. I hope this is actually how you feel and continue and blah, blah, blah. But
yes,
man, I'm buying right now. I'll buy all day on Colorado. I think it's good for them. I think it's good for the sport. And as a Big 12 fan, you hit it right on the head. It's going to be good for you guys next year, bringing eyes on your stuff.
Yep. Speaking of buying into the hype, because, again, I honestly thought they were just going to take TCU at 17. They only went up to 21, which if you look at 23 to 25 and below, that's fair. I don't think anyone below that you can go, they deserve to be higher. 1 week, it'll all even out here. Mm-hmm. Someone bought in way too much. Do you know what the highest rank someone had them at after 1 week?
No.
Just guess. 1 through 25.
Jesus. 5.
10.
Dave was closest, 9th.
Oh, thank God.
There's one voter that just jumped him to 9th after one game. Like, I get it. I love Deion. Our Deion's great, but like, man, that is like, let's pump the brakes a little
Man,
bit.
how
21 is fine.
how much respect does that voter have for TCU? I mean, what they have TCU the week before, like number 1?
Oh,
Jesus.
yeah, exactly. With that, I don't know. I was really thinking. We all knew TCU was going to step back. That was a sad thing. Is because everyone's like, oh man, they shit the bed. They put up 42 points, man. They're
Mhm.
going to be just fine. People are going to be shocked when they're at like 8-9 wins at the end of the year and competing for the Big 12, and it just But they lost to Colorado. They're good. They're just defense gave that one away.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me.
Later in the
So-
season, when it comes to bowl games, that'd be interesting if all of a sudden somehow them two teams met again.
Ooh, like in the bowl at the end of the year. Yeah,
Yeah.
hell yeah, man. I'd be down for round 2.
That'd be just
I-
kind of interesting, I think.
I think it's the Alamo Bowl that the Big 12 shares with the Pac-12. I know there's another one, but I don't know. Alamo Bowl might be a little too much for Colorado, but we'll have to look into that, see if there's any way for a rematch here. One cornball to another. Michigan, they quarterback J.J. McCarthy wore a free Harbaugh shirt because Michigan self-imposed a ban so he could coach versus Texas next year.
Yep.
And then they lined up in a formation holding up 4. No other football team in the history of forever has held up the number 4 before. I feel really good not having him in my playoff predictions right now, just from watching those two things, man. Like, you two are the Big Ten reps. You pay attention to Michigan more than me. Is Michigan always this corny?
Go for it, Dave.
Oh, I don't know if they're that corny because I don't know if they're like that, but I think it was pretty cringe as a Big Ten fan. Like, I thought that was pretty stupid. Pretty like it had its time and place, but like it was just like, all right, thanks for the odd, weird lineup. It's like no one was hurt. No one like there was no reason for like this weird lineup. Like it was just weird to me. But I still do have them as in the pod from last week. I do have them up there. So,
Yep.
You didn't take them out of your playoffs like I did.
nope.
I guess. Like, Joey.
Yeah. I mean, everyone knows my feelings on Nebraska. I've heard through the grapevine that Michigan and Ohio State fans are both pretty corny and just kind of douchey, but I don't have a problem with either one of them. They're not in my division, so I don't. It is what it is. But I mean, you watch Barstool stuff, you know how big of a douche Dave Portnoy is. So yeah, it just fits it. Tom Brady, douchebag. So I only say that out of jealousy, Tom. If you ever hear these words, which you won't. I saw them in my playoffs, man. They look good. McCarthy. I mean, they played ECU. It's not like they were going to play anyone, a whole lot of the game and stuff. They look good. Took care of business, 130-3. So they'll be fine.
Do we know what they ranked on WeFence?
Probably pretty low.
I want to make sure you heard me correctly. WeFence, right?
I don't know what WeFence is.
Oh, that's Jim Harbaugh. He quoted it. He said, "We don't play offense or defense. We have WeFence."
Oh.
He's not even going to play in the Big Ten championship game now. After I just said that, I'm changing my mind. Penn State all the way. They're gonna. I've been right since last week.
So you brought up what Dion said. If Dabo said that, yes. Yeah. If Jim Harbaugh says shit like this, it's cornball. That motherfucker wears the same khakis every day, drinks gallons of milk. Like, he's your tip. He wears New Balances to mow his lawn. Like, yeah, that dude. He was uncool when he was in the prime time of his life. Dude, still just a cornball. He lives it. He loves it. I'll give that to him.
Yeah. Living that cornball lifestyle, man.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't coach in a national championship or the college football playoffs and a Super Bowl and not be a little corny, I would think.
True. I would say it always kind of funny because at the end of the day, he's going to have those guys ready when he does come back. Mm-hmm. It's like the Georgia effect,
right?
No one has picked against them other than us, and they're going to take this as a slight because the NCAA is instituting rules when he did technically break rules. They self-imposed to avoid the harsher punishment, and now they don't like the less harsh punishment. It's like, are you not understanding where we're at here? Like, I just,
and that's got to be just a fan base just being stupid. I mean, obviously they think that their coach did no wrong, blah 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 blah. So yeah, but like you said, it's self-imposed. If they want to whine at anybody, whine at the president and Jim Harbaugh because they did it themselves, and then also the NCAA didn't even accept this punishment. Who knows what the hell's going to happen? So they could say next year you're going to get punished again, and they could be like, "Well, fuck you! You don't control us. You know, we're in the Big Ten. We do what we want."
So, and again, like just as a reminder, if anyone wasn't paying attention to it, do you know who they play this year? They play a bunch of freaking nobodies in their out of conference schedule when he is supposed to be off here. Next year they play Fresno State at home, Texas at home, and then Arkansas State at home. So again, another true don't go on the road in the out of conference here. But just remember, Michigan fans, as much as you want to cry about it, that's why you're doing it this year. In cupcake, no one gives a shit games, because next year you're actually going to want to try in the out of conference.
I'm pretty sure the Texas series is a home and home though. I'm pretty sure they go to Texas the next year.
Yeah. No, I would say, speaking of like that level of competition, I was so pissed to hear that like Oklahoma and Georgia stopped their home and home because next year Oklahoma is going to be in the conference, so it'd be a conference game, and they didn't want to. I don't know. It was weird. They didn't want to, I believe, unfairly have one home and then they don't get to play in Norman.
Right.
But it's like, man, you could have just still played the one game. It would almost. I felt like, couldn't you have done it in a neutral site somewhere, just one off year? I guarantee Jerry World is open. He always wants a game there.
Right.
Like
the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, there's so many stadiums in the South they could have played at.
Yeah. So I don't know. That one just kind of sucks because that would have been a great game next year. As much as Oklahoma shit the bed last year, they're going to be back this year. After watching that 73-0 shot, I don't give a shit that it's the Blind Sisters of the Deaf. I don't care. Whoever they played, they're playing a lot better this year, and their offense looks stable. Defense did what they were supposed to. They gave up 0 points to a nobody. So
yeah, they look good. We'll see. Their schedule's way easier than Texas's is. I could see them both being undefeated when that Red River Showdown happens. I don't think they're.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was just saying Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I can see them as a better team than Texas, but man, they're damn good too. So.
Sorry, I'm getting their schedule pulled up here to see who they play.
You're good. You want me to go through a couple of the other observations I had from the weekend?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I know we're going to touch on this in a little bit, but the Texas Tech Baylor, what happened, guys? Like, that's crazy. Texas Tech loses to Wyoming big time, or not big time, but as huge overdogs in Wyoming in Laramie, and then Baylor shits the bed against Texas State. Crazy.
So I got to defend the Big 12 here. No,
yeah.
They looked awful. But couple notes. One, did you know Laramie is the highest altitude school in the nation?
Really? Over Boulder?
Yeah. Apparently it's higher than Boulder, so that adds a little bit to it, which is kind of fun. And that's where it's like, I always hate that, like, oh, Iowa State's playing at Ohio this year. We need more of these true home and homes rather than these neutral site, like the LSU Florida State game. That was the only thing that sucked. It's like, why aren't you playing in Florida State? Same thing as last year. Why are you playing in a stadium that's in Orlando and not in Tallahassee, your home stadium? And last year, LSU, why aren't you playing in Death Valley? That kind of takes away from it. It's a small point. Oh shit. About the other two games, Laramie's the highest point. The Texas State coach. It's interesting because Dion and both him won. Combined, I believe they had 130 new players on their teams because Texas State had 50 players inbound, and I believe didn't Colorado have 80? I believe.
Yep, something like that. Texas State was the third most transferred in. That's crazy.
Yeah. So Baylor's never supposed to lose to Texas State, but when you're replacing these, I mean. There's kind of a bit of an epidemic going on that no one really talks about with this transfer portal because it is great, But then you also got teams that are kind of, they're trying to get the best deal. They're trying to get the best player, and a player can leave, and all of a sudden, the opportunity they thought they were going to have was there. There are a lot of players that they leave and they don't eventually just. It's not like you leave and you have to end up somewhere. You're just kind of in purgatory at that point, you know. So go ahead.
Is Texas State like one of these new Division I teams from the past couple of years? Also,
I believe they're just FCS, aren't they?
Yeah,
Joey?
I think they're in the
Do you happen to
same.
know?
They're in the same conference. Is it the Sun Belt that's down there with New Mexico State and stuff, and Arkansas State?
So
pulling it up
are
right
they
now.
Division I?
So they'd be in a group of 5. They wouldn't be the Power 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean they're still on the same level as like Iowa and like that level of college, right?
Yeah, just group of 5.
Yeah, just lesser
the
conference.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I would say it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because with all these transfer portals, like I said, there's a lot of players that end up nowhere, but then there's a lot of players that, like, honestly, hey, I was backup at who cares, Kentucky, all of a sudden you're gonna see these players popping up at Texas State because, oh shoot, that offer I thought I was gonna have from any Big 12 school or whatever isn't popping up. And they're just going to go to these. There's going to be a lot more parity in these Sunbelt schools. I think a lot of people realize tape is a lot easier to get out now. It's not the 80s where you have to put up a highlight reel and hope that some NFL scout. Everyone's going to see everything.
Oh, don't tell that to the New York Knicks. They're suing the Toronto Raptors for tapes that got sent with an assisted video person or whatever. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
stupid.
I'll be sure not to bring it up to him, Joey. I got a lot of connections up there.
You and James Dolan are tight, huh?
Yeah, me and Dolan.
Yep.
But no, so I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that slowly becomes closer, because like Oklahoma State quarterbacks last year, Spencer Sanders, he didn't practice for the bowl game, so he didn't play in the bowl game. He just quit on the team, and then he realized there was nothing out there. He tried to come back to Oklahoma State. Gundy, I think is kind of behind the times on a lot of stuff, but he was right on that. You quit on the team, you're not coming back. I don't care if you were a 3-year starter. We're just going to start fresh. And now he's riding pine at Ole Miss, man. Like, he went to a bigger school and just 3-year starter doesn't get a play now.
Oh, yeah. And so you're talking about behind the times and bringing players back. Dabo Swinney had 1 incoming transfer this year, a single incoming transfer. And it was a kid that had left Clemson and needed to come back.
Really? So it wasn't even a true transfer.
Hold on. Siri's trying to talk to me. Say that again.
I'd say so. It wasn't really a true transfer.
No,
then
it
was someone that it was just.
He just doesn't use the transfer portal. It's crazy the people that are behind the times with that type of stuff. And hell, even old gray-haired Kirky Kirk is in the transfer portal like crazy. So, but we don't need to talk about the Hawks yet. We'll get there.
Well, Dabo does some bullshit thing getting blue chip prospects. Like, who the fuck decides to do that, man?
What an a-hole. Speaking of that,
who needs it?
Yes. Speaking of that, when they transfer out, they look pretty damn good. I don't know if you guys saw DJ Uyunglele.
Yes,
he looked,
sir.
He looked great at Oregon State.
In the crazy thing, I chose him in our poll for, I think that coach is going to be coach of the year. They got a very favorable schedule. And their defense is still solid. And guess what? They didn't need an all-star quarterback. If DJ Uyunglele can be that caliber of quarterback all year, Oregon State's winning that conference if he is.
Yep.
Because USC doesn't have enough of a defense. If you struggle versus San Jose State, USC is going to drop 2 to 3 games this year. I just have a bad feeling that it's like the Chiefs before they kind of solidified their defense. You can try and outscore everyone, but when you're playing a Chiefs-Rams game on that Monday night every single week, I mean, it wears down, and eventually your luck turns off.
Right.
Yeah,
out of all of the heavyweights in that conference, man, USC, their offenses looked amazing, but so did Oregon State's, so did Washington's. Their defenses are way better. Utah's going to bully the shit out of you guys. Their offense didn't look bad, even not having their starting quarterback against, Florida. Like, it's that conference isn't, and we haven't even seen Oregon, really get it going or anything like that. So we'll see. I'm in for all the dogfights of this Pac-12 swan song going on, man.
Is the SEC overrated? I'm just going to try and get some reaction because honestly, they play a bunch of nobodies and they're out of conference, and we don't blame them. We do get the 8-game conference. We're all just kind of jealous of it. I mean, there are 3 teams that kind of played legit conference opponents outside, and Florida's not the greatest. Napier's still building this program, but lost to a third stringer at Utah on the road. Utah played at home. That was a little bit of an advantage, but Utah won or beat them. LSU didn't look good at all. Their quarterback looked lost yesterday, and poor coaching were, honestly, I have a trivia stat, but LSU looked not great, or maybe Florida State is that legit. I mean, they had some really uncharacteristic losses in the out of conference. I mean, do you think the SEC's down, or do you think it's just like most conferences, they are just super top heavy with Georgia, Alabama?
You can go, Dave.
Combination. I think they are being more Iowa and Big Ten bias. I think the SEC is overrated, but at the same time, I think they are top heavy though, because you have Alabama and Georgia always as like the top 2, and you have LSU, Auburn, and some other people always trying to fight for that 3rd, 4th place spot. But I do believe that they are overrated. I think based off the Florida State game, you can see that LSU is not what they used to be, or what they. I really think Brian Kelly was not a great hire. I honestly do think that, and I do think that LSU and the Auburns, since they fight so much for that 3rd, 4th, 5th spot, it just shows how much. To me, it shows how overrated they can be, along with being top heavy.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if you take the top 4 from all the conferences, so if you took Bama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, we'll just say that they're the 4 best. Yeah, you could argue Texas A&M, even though they haven't played yet because of their recruiting classes and shit. You take those 4 up against the top 4 of every other conference, I think you're still going to get an Alabama, Georgia national championship. I just think that they're just that good. So overall, I would say I would agree with you guys. I think the SEC is quote unquote overrated because their mid-tier to bottom-tier teams aren't as good as the other conferences, but I still think they're the best conference because of their top 4. I mean, I know as a Big Ten West person, I would not want to be in the SEC West. That's for damn sure. It just happens to be that way. So, I don't know. Yeah, I'll agree with Dave. Yeah, top heavy, but a little overrated through the mid and bottom.
So I saw this stat here, and don't look in the notes when I'm asking you. Brian Kelly has played 13 games against AP top 25. Or I'm sorry, again, AP. It's got to be AP top 10. I put AP top 25, and that's not correct. He's played 13 games against top 10 AP top 25 teams. Guess what his record is?
Isn't he like 3-10 or something like that?
Fucking right on those, man.
I thought I saw that.
3-10 in those 13 games.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
He has 2 national coach of the year awards, and he has 3 wins versus top 10 teams.
That's
asinine.
I got another 13 stat for you. Which conference is 13-0 right now in all of their games?
Oh, I know. Dave, do you know?
Pac-12.
Yeah. First conference to go 13-0 since 1981. Crazy.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a long time.
They're going to be around forever, right?
Yeah. Good times. Good times in the Pac-12. Never mind.
They're going out with a fucking bang, man. 13-0. That is incredible, and it just – and again, we all agree. It's shitty that their leadership did such a poor job, and unfortunately, our conferences are the ones that had to didn't have to, but they did jump in. Colorado left and slowly leaked away. The other schools weren't going to hold off to try and see if they could get Tulane and SMU and stuff, and things fell our way. So it is unfortunate, but good on them for every single one. Considering all the jokes that Cal and Stanford and everyone else hits, everyone won. Fucking Purdue lost to Fresno State. Big 12 had disastrous opening weekend. I don't even want to touch anymore on everyone else, but good on them.
Yep. And before we move on from the Florida State LSU game, I just want to say I was thoroughly entertained by that, especially the first half. I don't know if there was a better half of football played this weekend. It was really, really good. That Wingo from LSU was just going crazy that first half, and then Florida State just made second half adjustments and came out guns a-blazing. They switched their guards and tackles so that there was more athleticism in the middle there, and that window just got shut down for the rest of the game. And that's when you saw Jordan Travis going off, and it was you're welcome. It was a good second half by Florida State. I don't know if I've seen a better halftime adjustment yet this year, and a lot of last year too.
I want to make sure I heard that right. They switch. I didn't hear that. They switched the tackles and the guards.
Yep. So because they have so much depth and stuff, they switched their tackles to guard to give more beef in the middle, and then to slow down the edge rushers with more athleticism, they had a couple backup guards come in and play tackle.
Interesting.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they switched up their whole offensive line. It was crazy. I didn't know that. That's exclusively taken from Cover 3 podcast, the CBS one. It's very good. But yeah, they broke that down too. It's good adjustments. Keon Coleman, man, he's as good as hyped. And I think Daniels for LSU looked better than the stats he put up. LSU dropped a ton of balls.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, and once you start getting behind, you just got to start throwing too. Yep. You're just more susceptible. And what's the defense going to do? We're up by 2 touchdowns and they have limited time. We're just gonna hold 8 back, and it's gonna happen. Right. It just honestly, I think it just shocked everyone because of how close it was last year and all that. And I can't remember, there was a special teams play in the beginning that screwed them up, and it's like, man, like that's the winning the margin stuff, man. Yep. And Florida State didn't lose in the margins, and that's where they were able to just take off.
Yep. And I think after the Clemson upset, Florida State's clear-cut winner of the ACC. I don't think there's another team that comes close, to be honest.
Till I see something else. Maybe my Syracuse Orange will be able to do something.
Maybe.
But I doubt it. I mean, they won like 65-0, man. I don't care if it was Wagner or not. They looked fucking phenomenal.
Right.
So let's get to our games. My God, we're almost 50 minutes. We haven't even talked about our teams. Iowa 24, Utah State 14. Utah State covered plus 23.5. You're gonna be shocked. Another Iowa under hit, under 43 points. How'd you guys feel?
I guess the 3 points of interest that got me for this game is one, McNamara, Eric All, and Luke Lachey. They're all portals, and they made a lot of plays, and they showed like what kind of, when things are clicking, what Iowa could probably do. And that it was kind of nice seeing a over 25-yard pass for a touchdown with Sean Anderson.
Yep.
For 36 yards. Every play that those people were involved in, I think it showed what Iowa can be capable of this year. But the second point is we need to try more of those type of passes like what to Anderson. We need to try more of those longer passes, because I noticed throughout the game we get those, like we were building up, and all of a sudden it felt like we went back to Iowa of old. And then the third one is just really, I thought overall it was just really refreshing to see an offense move the ball. Like I thought it was crazy to see all this. Even though the defense played really well, it was just nice to see the offense move the ball and see things happen. But, I mean, they only scored 24 points. I think he has to score 25 per game and win 7. So, yeah, we'll see if they can get above 24 for the next few games.
Joey. Well, Dave touched on all the feel-good shit. Offensive line looked super fucking bad. Our defensive line that it was supposed to be a stalwart. Utah State is not a good offensive line. We couldn't get any pressure. That was disappointing. And then, just the game plan of going back to Ferentz ball. He's not going to have a job if he keeps doing that shit. So I don't know. Maybe McNamara got tweaked or something, but I didn't get to watch 100% of the game. I did go back and rewatch as much as I could too. But those were my takeaways. I'm optimistic. Don't get me wrong. That first half looked really, really good. I got my hopes up and thought that they would carry over to the second half, and it just didn't. So hopefully they learn from that. Hopefully they were just trying to be super vanilla, not let everything out, with Iowa State coming to town next week and then Penn State week 4 or 5, whatever they are. I hopefully that's what it is. But Brian, you got so many games to score those points. You need them. You should have went for more, I think. But well,
he needs to average 25.091 points the rest of the year in order to get to that goal. I thought I was going to be original. I was going to have our ticker at the bottom here. If you're watching on YouTube, have the official Brian Ferentz. I saw 3 parody Brian Ferentz accounts that all had like the best one was I think Sicko's Committee or one of the Iowa fans or feeds had the Yodeler game from Price is Right. And it was just gonna be like the road to 325. I think is the game he has to get to, and it's like he didn't even get to the first 25. It's like, oh come on, man! Like honestly, that was the game you needed to have 42 points.
Right?
Do you think either team's gonna get 24 points or 25 points next week or this weekend? Sorry, no. We know what we're about, so now you're gonna have to overexert. One thing, and I'll agree with you, Joey. I'm not going to say they're bad. I'm going to let you be the super pessimistic. You weren't getting pushed on that interior line that you needed to. I mean, I can't remember who the right guard was guarding, but man, like he was kind of holding the Iowa defensive tackle. And honestly, you really didn't need to do much versus the Aggies, but it's like you'd kind of want to see. I mean, even Iowa State's 340-pound defensive tackle had a gigantic sack.
Right.
On Theo Day, you wanted to see something like that on the interior going, okay, this whole line is good. You know, we're not relying on, I don't know if you have like an all-star on the defense, but, you know, they went pretty vanilla and some of the stuff that should have like you expect in these tune-up games didn't happen. Utah State isn't bad. They went bowling last year, but you're still Iowa.
Right. And that's the thing is we're still Iowa. And that goes to show we're not in a position yet to just run points up on these lesser schools that are coming in to get a payday type of thing. And that goes back to scheme. Like McNamara, for as good as he looked, he still only had a QBR of 35.9 and had less than 200 yards. I mean, it's still not completely there. So hopefully that changes. Hopefully they just need, build some momentum, get all cozy with each other. But yeah, seeing the stalwart lines struggle a little bit and then just revert back to what we're used to of just, sitting on a lead. I wasn't super happy about that, but a lot of season left.
Ferentz, man, he's going to be okay with a 14-point lead. And that, like, he shut that down way too early. First quarter, 14 points. And he was like, yep, we're done with scoring. So I don't know, man, that one was a little worrisome. Those passes looked amazing. First opening drive with a passing touchdown of a season. First season opening with a passing touchdown since 1991. I was 1 year old at that point, and now I'm running a middling podcast. So
middling, man, we graduated since I left.
Yeah, damn. Yeah. That's been the weird thing, man. Like, if one more thing about Iowa is, I expect those lines, because I mean that's kind of Ferentz's bread and butter. Those lines did not look great, and honestly, one of the I think it was Bloom for one of the Iowa State pods. I mean, honestly, do you think either of the Ferentzes are going to be there next year? It just seems like Kirk is just like, I'm going to be okay with a 14-point lead, and like you said, we're just going to kind of get, we're just going to play to get 0 more points the rest of the game. Either way, Utah State or us. I mean, do you think there's a chance that he's just done after this year?
I don't know. Possibly.
I don't know about this year. I think after this year, he's probably got one left.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I saw he was the 3rd oldest coach right now. I thought it was Mac Brown, Saban, and him, I think.
Oh shit! I forget Saban. He's still got like that brownish hair, but yeah, he's old as hell.
So here's the most important stat line of the game. Torrey Taylor had 6 punts for 292 yards, 48.7 average. 3 of those babies were inside of the 20. So shooting 50%. Good old Torrey Taylor, baby. Heisman.
I mean, you probably don't want to hear that the Iowa State punter averaged more yards, but he did. He averaged over 50.
Well, how many punts did he have?
2? I think he had 5. Oh. We didn't. Well, we'll get to the Iowa State game. We Iowa State 30, UNI 9. Iowa State covered -7, under 40.5 points here. Iowa State ran 45 offensive plays. That was the lowest in the FBS by like 4 or 5 plays. because of this new system that you got coaches on the sidelines now. Chip Kelly was saying, I hope you're selling plenty of commercials to an ESPN reporter, which I thought was awesome.
Who he used to work
They
with.
gotta-
Who he used to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to change something, man. These games, the games are not shorter, and all you're doing is it's less football and more commercials. And it's if it was sneaky and no one noticed, it'd be fine. Everyone's noticing that there's less football. Like, I hope they change this one back after this year.
So
but
I saw the national
because of it-
average was half a point and 3 plays shorter.
Yeah, so claiming for safety, but I bet you the commercials are up.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it.
I know there's a lot of players or people that are like keeping track, like the LSU Florida State game, talking about how there's literally more commercials than football. But I don't know, man. The way that Iowa State's going to have to win too, we're going to have to be able to run the ball. We're going to have to be able to win ugly, and we're going to have some super short games. I just feel because we. Like I said, how do you have 45 plays versus a UNI? But regardless, my quick assessment. I mean, did either one of you guys catch this game?
Mm-mm.
I saw a little bit of it. I really did. I thought from watching the pod last year, paying attention to you guys, how you guys were talking about it, seemed like Iowa State's special teams were a little bit better or something, maybe a lot better, something. But
Yes.
So,
Yeah, if you listened last year, that was literally about probably every single week. What was the moment of the game where we just lost on special teams and lost in the margins? But, kind of running down because we'll get to special teams. I think quarterback Rocco Becht and J.J. Cole played fine. Nothing stood out about them being amazing. Kind of like McNamara. It's like you played a lesser opponent. You did what you needed to, but it wasn't like right home about. Running backs, we got 5 of them. I'm blanking on his name. Our starter was fine. Abu Sama. He was our freshman coming in from Southeast Polk. He's looking pretty good. There's already been someone said he has he reminds him of Breece Hall, and it's like, okay, let's give it more than one game versus UNI. But he had a couple good cutbacks.
I'm surprised there wasn't a Troy Davis thrown out there. He looks just like Troy.
Just like Troy. The line looks better. We're not. I'm not going to say great by any means, but I mean we were getting some decent push off the line. We were again winning ugly. We were winning. We were averaged I think 5.5 yards a carry. You don't do that without your offensive line improving. Defense still good. Our defensive tackle. You're gonna hear about a man with the last name Orange, the big citrus. That defensive tackle is 6'4", 340 pounds, and he is going to be a beast, I think, in this game. He's going to be one of our keys if we're going to win this weekend. And the note I have is, holy shit, we got special teams because we nailed a 56-yard punt. Our punter is downing stuff. We had returns, and you don't realize it as being an Iowa fan because you have fantastic special teams. But I'm sitting here and I'm going, oh my God, we have a returner and there's some lanes opening up because we just knew who to block, what we needed to do. Like, it was just the little stuff where we've been talking the last few years with Campbell, where he says, win in the margins. And then we've just never had a coach to correct that stuff. And we finally do. It is amazing how much better we look by playing field position, playing Ferentz ball, Beamer ball, whatever you want to call it. Just not muffing punts and doing the stupid shit we did last year. It is like, oh, wow, we only have to drive it 40 yards now rather than 70 because we opened up a lane for Noel to get some yards. Right. It was finally a not stressful UNI game where we didn't go to triple overtime and win by a field goal.
That's always got to feel good, especially going into this week, right?
I would agree.
Good.
Our defense, we had a pick 6 to start the game, and I missed it because I thought the game started at 1:30, so I missed our greatest defensive play.
Oh, shit.
And we had 6 sacks. So, UNI has solid line. They always have a solid team. That's what we needed to do, and I think we did that and a little more, just with me with Cardinal colored glasses.
Yeah. So I heard Trent last week say that UNI had a stud quarterback. Did he look very good, or is he still learning?
He looked like dog shit. But again, as much as some Iowa fans don't want to admit online, Iowa State has a top defense in FBS. Not the top defense. I'm not saying like, but you can't tell me that we're not. And this is being very low, minimum top 20.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, we have. I just don't want to say top 10 and get the eyes rolled at me, but we have a top defense, and that's what we're supposed to do versus UNI. And it seemed like we were rotating a decent amount of people because we didn't want anyone. I think TJ, that this is with TJ Tampa only playing like 15 snaps, and he is our All-American. All Big 12. I don't think All-American candidate yet.
Right.
But we have the best DB in the state named Cooper. He was playing pretty well as well.
Bye.
I knew you'd like that one, Joey. But no, we played exactly how we needed to, man. It was a good tune-up game, and I think it's good. It's honestly, watching both teams, it is going to lead up to a very good CyHawk here.
I agree.
So, Iowa, they didn't start as a 4-point favorite, but as of like 2 hours before we recorded here, Iowa is currently a 4-point favorite at Iowa State. Over under 36.5 points. That wasn't a record low from like last year, but that doesn't even. I think it opened at 39 and it has moved down 3 points since. The game is going to be at 2:30 on Fox. I'll let you two start again. What is your prediction, or what does Iowa got to do to win the game?
Dave, it's your first one. Pop your cherry, bud. Let's get it.
All right, so
Jeez.
with the over-under being at 36.5, I am taking the over. I do think, based off what I've seen from both offenses, I think they can score over the 36.
Okay.
The Iowa keys to victory is to disrupt that ISU offensive line and put a lot of pressure on them and anyone blocking, get them flustered, whatever it is. Keep control of the ball and keep the ball moving, but not of Iowa old. No more of this goofy stuff, but just keep it moving. And then, and finally, score more than 25 points, but make Iowa State not score. Make them score less.
There you go. I like it.
Super simple. If you don't know how football works or winning, listen to Dave's predictions.
Yep.
The score more points, but yeah, score more than 25 points. You got to help Brian out somehow. He's got to get to like 27 to get that average.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So I'll piggyback off Dave. I think they also go over. So, you're looking at 37 points. So basically it's got to be a 21-17 game for Iowa to still cover. So I'll take Iowa the points and the over. I think all that hits. Keys are, for me, the O-line has got to do better at run blocking. Unless they stick with the, run and gun like they did in the first half against Utah State. I think Iowa's, and I should re-say what I did before about their offensive line being terrible. They pass blocked like motherfuckers. They were good. It's, the run blocking that we tried, ground and pounding against Utah State that didn't look very good. So I say if we keep it in the air and we keep pass blocking, I think we could run away with it, to be honest with you. And then it's also going to be just slowing down that running attack that Iowa State's got. They're still breaking in a new quarterback and everything. So they slow down the running attack, keep it in the air. I think Iowa covers and wins.
I am worried about that passing attack because, like you said, we are breaking in a quarterback. Supposedly, we're going to play both.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had two quarterbacks, you don't got one quarterback.
Yeah, that's Ryan Day.
Yeah, I think it's fair because like you can't assess one's better than the other versus UNI, and one played in somewhat garbage time and one didn't.
Right.
And we played a third one, but I think it's basically Becton and JJ Cole that we're going to be playing with. Obviously, shocker, I'm going to go with Iowa State, but I mean, right now with the simple improvements that I've seen just on, we've played you guys tough every single year, and how have we lost some of them? We muffed a fumble on the 5-yard line, let you walk in with no one behind us. We've had the muffed punt. There is such the literally winning and losing in the margins. If we've improved the margins here, we're right up to that level, in my opinion. The line has played so much better. This the offensive line coach that came from UNI, he has done, which I would have thought every offensive line coach would have done this. But, he didn't have positions when he started with these guys. He was basically going, hey, okay, you used to play tackle, but you're playing better at guard. You're playing guard now. Like, that doesn't seem like overly complicated stuff, but like he's just playing whoever makes the most sense at these spots. And I think you could tell when I was watching Iowa State here. I think our offensive line, as long as we can continue to not let Iowa collapse us and we can get that run game going, I think that'll work. Joy, I'll be honest, man, I will agree with you on one thing. I hope Iowa is forced to pass because that means they're not running that ball, because I think our 3-3-5, if you can get a running game established with our three front, I feel like orange in the middle is going to clog it up. And if you guys aren't getting good push, you're going to have to force into the air. And our best players are our DBs, Frailer, Purchase, Tampa, and DBs. If we can get you guys flustered enough where Kirk Ferentz wants to air the ball out and we can get, disruption there, I think that's going to be a long day for Iowa. Yeah. Iowa has always beaten Iowa State. Why? Because they've had the bigger linemen, and they've honestly been able to just bully us every single year, as well as special teams. Right. And what did you do? It would have been 2 years ago. What did you do 2 years ago when we had the greatest team ever at Iowa State? You pinned us deep. Yep. You made us have 90-yard drives every single time, and we could never finish. Whereas now, like I said, even the few times versus you and Iowa's special teams is going to be exponentially better. But if we can get some solid returns where we can get a good, 10, 15, 20-yard return every once in a while and turn a 90-yard return or a 90-yard drive into a 75, a 60-yard drive, all of a sudden we're becoming bearable. I mean, yep. It's becoming, not bearable, becoming plausible. Our kicker made a 56-yard field goal, man. All of a sudden now I'm believing, anytime we get within the 40, we can at least get some points coming away from it, Right. Is that going to happen every time? No. But, I think with these winning in the margins that we've always hyped and never done up until what I've seen this year, if we can keep that up, I think if one of our quarterbacks starts playing well, we just need to nail it down. I think that's probably the last thing. We can't keep going back and forth unless you have gimmick plays that for sure will work with one. I think you just got to, honestly, I think at this point you just go with Becht, who has at least a few more college plays, and just commit to one guy and get him the snaps and play the game. Unless he, has 3 interceptions and the game's out of hand, just keep him in and just, you can't have an offense keep going, okay, well, it's JJ. Now we gotta block a little bit differently, or now we're going to change the game plan. Just commit to one.
Iowa's secondary is way too good to have a quarterback coming off the bench cold and not being warmed up for the rest of the game. Just expect them to have success. So the other argument I have against the, you're hoping for a passing attack. Your linebackers, from what I've heard, is the weakest part of your defense. That's who's got to cover our tight ends. That's the bread and butter for Iowa. Yeah. That opens everything else on the outside. So it's a rivalry game. I think it's going to be a great chess match.
Definitely.
Sorry, I'm going to pull up your stats from last week, but your tight ends I think were your top 2 receivers again, weren't they?
I'm pretty sure. It's not surprising if they were.
I think all had the most, maybe.
You might be
right. I think Eric all had more yards, I feel like, for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I did get a kick because, again, it's CyHawk and players are just going to say stuff. You had a receiver that was like, I saw plenty of opportunity. He was the one that had that 20-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, like he was talking like, oh, I had 100 yards and I'm going to go for 100 more. I looked up, the kid had 40 yards. Yep. He had 2 catches, and that's what I see plenty of opportunity. It's like, in that offense? Are you sure? Did Kirk say he was going to change his whole offensive philosophy? What happened?
So he was one of them that had the touchdown. All actually only had 15 yards, but did have the touchdown. And Luke Lachey had the 7 receptions for 73 yards.
Okay.
Lachey, yeah. So, and I agree. If you guys could get away with just running and tight end pop, I don't think you're going to throw to your wide receivers once. Why? If something's working,
Yep. I would like to see them do it, though. I mean, I really want to see if we get a rhythm going, they start going through the air, test some stuff downfield, because Iowa State's got great defensive backs. We're going to see a lot more good defensive backs throughout the Big Ten West. That's just how it's going to be this year. Illinois is stacked on defense. So is Michigan, or so is Minnesota and Wisconsin. So that's going to happen.
Speaking, that's going to be another good game. You mentioned Kansas at Illinois, that high-powered offense versus that staunch defense. I think Illinois pulls away with it, but that's going to be a fun one. And that one's on Friday,
Right.
so you don't even have to compete with any other conference.
Yeah, I wish there was more Friday night games. I know they wouldn't want to take away from high school games, but man, you give me 1 or 2 big time games on a Friday night. That's awesome.
Put them on the Peacock.
Yeah,
right?
Give me the cock.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait, what?
I shouldn't say that too loud. I am in a hotel, I guess.
Yeah, well, it'll be fine as long as you pay per night and not per hourly. Then all of a sudden, some questions are going to be asked.
Yeah, well, it doesn't show up in the expense report. That's all I got to say.
There.
So I do got a
Shocker.
question for you. I know we're running long, but so to kind of flip this around, I was kind of thinking of things that, what can Iowa State do to Iowa to beat us? And I 100% believe that it's going to be running the ball up our throat. You go through the air, it's not going to happen for you guys. So running the ball, and if you guys, like you said, with your special teams getting anywhere close to us, I think that's a win. I think that's a win for you guys. So.
I agree. We were just talking about how we have 2 quarterbacks, we have none. Yep. We're going to have to be able to run that ball and get that pressure off of these young QBs. And no offense, that defensive line, I didn't go, holy shit, they got Lucas Van Ness. Oh shit, they got whoever. It looked kind of a plain Jane Iowa defensive line. Nothing really stuck out. But excuse me, but you're going to be disciplined. That's going to be the toughest thing is you don't have to be the most talented if you can just play your role every single time. Right. So if we can establish a run, that's going to be huge for us. Honestly, watching our line, it'll shocker. It's going to be a battle of the lines. It's crazy. No one's ever heard of that in football. But if your defensive line does put up any pushback against us, if they were just kind of, it's Utah State, we don't need to exert ourselves 100%. If they come out and get some hustle on that line and get us frustrated early, the key is going to honestly be who leads at halftime, because neither offense has the firepower to outscore in the second half or run a hurry up.
Right.
I believe it's if Campbell is leading at halftime, he wins 80% of the time. If he's tied, it drops down to only winning 20% of the time.
Damn.
And then when he's losing, it's like 33. So if we can get a hot start, that will be our key to victory. If we're losing going into the second half, and you really kind of, even if I know you guys didn't really watch Purdy and all them, there's a few times we snuck it out. It only took 4 NFL players, on an offense to do it, though. Otherwise, we have never in the Campbell era had that hurry up firepower to get that done.
Right.
So whoever leads at halftime wins the game.
Right.
So that'll be your best bet of the week. Whoever is leading, just bet them to win the game.
There it is. I like it. I like it a lot.
I have
anything else on CyHawk?
I think one thing I've kind of been thinking about is the defensive line for Iowa. Like, yes, we've had names where they pop out like Van Ness and all them. And like this year, so far, we haven't had that. We've played 1 game. I'd like to see like 3-4 games in, if all of a sudden there's one player that does start making a name for himself. Because I feel like it's just an odd year for Iowa. I think just from all the distraction from the gambling and all that crap, I think it's just an odd year that we haven't heard of one name on the defensive line yet. So I'm waiting to see what happens this week too with that.
Well, you had that player that he was elected by your team, and then he backed out because of the gambling stuff. And I know he was your star, wasn't he? I can't remember what was his. Joey, do you remember his name?
I've tried to not pay attention to the gambling stuff and just kind of if they're not going to be there, they're not going to be there. It's super fucking disappointing. I'm more disappointed in the investigation only being in our state, but we've already touched on that. So,
yep,
yeah. Okay. Well, because I know that was probably the big thing is you had a starter that was like the elected captain go to the Big Ten media days, and he did the smart thing with I'm not going to be a distraction. I'm not leaving out.
Yep.
And then, like you said, now all of a sudden you don't have a star on the defensive line at least. It will be interesting once we get out of this going into conference play. Who's going to be your this is the leader that we need to follow behind? Because I know Iowa State has a couple established ones in the cornerbacks, and like I said, Orange on the defensive line jumped in for one of the players. Again, I think as much as we're sweating it going into the season, that Isaiah Lee he wasn't playing over this orange that was playing in the middle. This kid is I'm telling you guys, you'll see him play on Saturday, and you're gonna go, now I see why Brian brought him up like 4 times in the podcast. This guy is a fucking animal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of looked out on that, and honestly, I think you guys kind of looked out on, you lost Arlen, but then you replaced him with a Michigan and Ohio State recruit. You know, I think we all kind of did end up in the better.
Yep.
Sad.
Yep. And I also think that, like, I mean, Cooper DeJean, whatever his last name is, he's obviously going to be our leader on defense. But Nick Jackson, the transfer in from Virginia, the All ACC linebacker, like he's settling in. He still had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. So I mean, I'd like to see his production a little bit higher too. So we'll see. It's 1 game in. I know I'm super pessimistic, Joe, but there are some things to look forward to if they can improve.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad we finally matured to not say Iowa State's going to win by 54 points. Iowa's going to have 8 sacks and 4 safeties. You know, we finally settled to who we are. Man,
I don't even need to rent anything tonight. 8 sacks and 4 safeties. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm ready to get
you just heard 8 points right there. That's more than your offense all last year. Do you go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Do you feel last year was, after seeing Saturday where some things worked for Iowa and some things didn't, are you leaning more that this was on Petrus, or do you think last year was still kind of Ferentz and the schemes he was running for him?
Second.
And kind of the athletes he had?
The second one.
100%.
The amount of times that we're going to waste Phil Parker's defense is going to drive me fucking nuts till I die.
Yeah, I would have to agree 100% with Joey on that. Like, there was nothing but that.
I didn't agree. I didn't think so either. I agreed with it because, like, I know I saw there's the thing about Twitter is it's not real life, but you see all the shitty responses because the more likes you get, more engagement, it just pops up on your For You page and stuff. But there's so many people. It's like, now you see why we hated Petrus. It's like, you hated Petrus, the guy that went out every week and didn't back down from media that answered for Brian Ferentz's poor offensive game plan.
Right.
And he got to go sit with his dad in the locker room while he went out and spoke to the media. I thought he was, at least on the leadership side, he was great.
Yeah.
Talent, not the greatest, but.
Yeah, and I mean, it was weird that he didn't really get to transfer anywhere. There was really no offers or whatnot. I mean, that probably goes more into his record at Iowa than his actual talent. But I don't know. I didn't hate Petrus. I don't think we've had a quarterback since maybe Brad Banks that can, throw and hit the broadside of a fucking barn on a crossing route. We'll see what happens with that.
Drew Tate, Holiday Bowl, LSU. What are you talking
Still
about?
Inaccurate. That was an amazing play.
It's not the Holiday Bowl. It
right.
was
Exactly.
Tate to Holloway.
No, that's what I meant. The Holloway Bowl. Yeah,
exactly.
Wasn't it the Capital One Bowl?
It was.
Which one was that?
Capital One.
Capital One Bowl. Okay. So, alrighty. Well, I'm glad we're all feeling good about our teams finally. Joe, you were a little pessimistic on Saturday when we were texting, so I'm glad everything's kind of turned full circle and we're back to Iowa, Joey.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had a few beers and just I want my team to be the best team in the nation and have scores of 73-0 and shit like that. So, but yeah, what does make me feel better, and this is the last thing I'll say for the evening. Death, taxes, Nebraska losing close games. God, it's a thing of beauty. So much.
It's gonna suck, man. First off, that Minnesota catch was catch of the year. It's sad that it's already done and over with. I've never seen someone did. He did like the Air Jordan, and his foot was just like skimming 2 inches above the ground and caught that. The sad thing is, Joey, it's not going to happen this weekend because I think Colorado is going to destroy them.
I agree.
I don't think it's going to be a close game.
I hope you're right. I so much hope you're right.
So, all righty. I guess the last thing I really had, other than if you have any like best bets that you want to throw out there, we kind of cheated. We all got to saw one game from everyone. Who do you think conference winners are going to be?
So I've got I filled out the sheet. Florida State, the ACC, Michigan, the Big Ten, Texas, Big 12, Oregon State, Pac-12, and Georgia from the SEC. And I sent these to Bryant since I wasn't on last week, and I'm doing just kind of fill-in stuff while Trent's gone. My college football playoff predictor was Georgia, Michigan, LSU, Oregon State. And I wanted that said before, and I sent it to Bryant so that he knew that I wasn't just lying about the Oregon State stuff.
Yeah. The funny thing is, this is what's going to happen. Everyone's going to discount LSU right now, and then they're going to win 12 games, and everyone's going to go, where'd this team come? They lost to one of the top teams that's probably going to have a good chance at the playoffs with Clemson shit in the bed, So, I mean, I think LSU's not out of it yet. I know it seems a little rough, but they'll get back on the horse. Right. Trent, since he's not here, he had Florida State, Penn State for the Big Ten, Kansas State for the Big 12, Oregon for the Pac-12, and then Georgia for the SEC. Any complaints there?
No.
I don't watch enough Big 12 to know if Kansas State's good again this year. We'll find out later in the season, but I'm just going with the Texas hype. I do think they're back.
Will Howard had a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown. He's their quarterback for Kansas State.
Nice.
He was the one last year that Martinez went out, and all of a sudden their offense started improving. That was Will Howard until he got injured. But I think that Will Howard's going to be legit. He's just not – honestly, all the big quarterbacks are in the Pac-12. No one's going to pay attention to the Big 12 because that conference is going to be – I'm going to probably bet USC overs all fucking year just because no defense. And that Pac-12, well, until they dissolve – this year is what everyone thinks when they're making jokes and they don't know what the Big 12 defenses are about. That they think the Pac-12 is actually what Big 12 was 15 years ago.
100%.
We're just going to outscore you, and who cares if you score 35 because we're scoring 52.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I completely agree. That Gabriel in Oklahoma, though, he's pretty fucking good, too.
He's pretty legit. Yeah. He came from UCF.
That's right.
His offensive coordinator and him came over at the same time. But I think Oklahoma – I think they're actually a little bit back now. We knew they weren't going to go 6-7 again. Are they going to win double-digit games? I don't think so. Again, it's one game. Let's see them versus a legit opponent. But when you see a team that can put up 70 points and they give up 0 and they did exactly what they needed to, if Venables has the players he needs on that defense, they're going to at least go into SEC play feeling a little more confident about themselves.
And that backup quarterback they got, he's fucking lights out too, man. He came in and just ran.
General Booty?
Yeah, General Booty or whatever. Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah. Matthews, who joins the pod on Thursdays, I sent it over to him, but apparently he has an NIL deal for underwear, and he just posed on a horse in his General Booty shorts, and I don't know.
Good for you.
This is what it's about. This is why we need NIL so badly, man.
I hope when he's 95 years old at his funeral someday that's the picture they post up, next to the casket. Good for that motherfucker. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with the name General Booty, if you're not going to sell booty shorts, then you should give up your name because you're just wasting it at that point.
Hell yes.
So, for my 5 choices, I had Florida State. I'll be honest, it probably would have been between them and Clemson after watching Cade Klubnik just not be able to do anything versus Duke, which Duke is solid. I bet you they win 9 games this year. That was inexcusable. That they looked like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing out there. Big Ten, I'm going to keep on Penn State. Honestly, I think that's more me hating Ohio State and Michigan than believing Penn State, but if they have a quarterback that can do something, and West Virginia is not a top opponent in the Big 12, but as a Power 5, they did what they needed to. I feel like this might be the year Penn State usurps them.
Yep. I've heard people say that West Virginia might be the best offensive line that Penn State faces this year. That West Virginia offensive line is supposedly really, really good. So
potentially. I mean, Neil Brown's a little bit on the hot seat, but I mean, West Virginia is no slouch this year either. So, Big 12, I got Kansas State. I just didn't see anyone. It's Kansas State, Oklahoma, Texas. I think right now Oklahoma State looks like shit, 24-14 versus Central Arkansas. They just didn't have an identity. Iowa State, I got to see what we do versus Iowa before I really, jokingly or not. Cincy did exactly what they need to. They got Emory Jones. there, and they won by 60 points. I need to see what they do versus a Power 5 before I jump anything. I mean, all the Texas schools basically lost. Houston edged by UTSA. I mean, I think it's the main three that everyone had at the beginning of the year: Kansas State, Texas, Oklahoma. Until someone really pulls away, I'm just going to go Kansas State with the safe bet.
I mean, TCU lost to the eventual national champion, so I mean, they're still in it.
Shut the fuck up.
And this will be my official last time on the podcast.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna restrict your invites. Pac-12. I've been riding this one for a while, but Oregon State. The main thing is they finally got a quarterback. Their defense is great. They do not play USC during the year to get any favor. USC getting any favor if they win or lose versus them. I think the toughest road game they have. Oh shit! I think it's at Oregon,
Yep.
But they play like Utah at home. They play their toughest games at home. So
I just because I've recently been out there, I don't know if you know how far away it is from Eugene to Corvallis. It's like 40 minutes tops.
Really?
They're super close.
I would have thought it would be like Portland and the other end of the state, but they're that close.
Yeah, they're real close.
And then, sorry, I'm going to be predictable on SEC Georgia. I'm sorry. Carson Beck didn't look terrible. Georgia has all that talent out there. I think you'd call me a moron if I didn't choose the two-time, back-to-back national champion to win their at least conference this year.
Right.
So.
With who's had the number one recruiting class for 5 years. Yeah.
Oops. Yep. So. It looks like Dave hopped off here. I'm not sure where he's at, but I mean, I don't know, man. I'm trying to think. Is there any school that you think might come out of any conference and shock us for what they're going to do this year?
I would not be surprised if you gave me Oregon State, Oregon, Washington, USC, Utah. If anyone gave me one of those 5 coming out of that conference, I would love to see it be Utah. I've been a big fan of how they play ball out there. I like the Kansas State, Texas, Oklahoma picks, but I could see, supposedly this was the year Texas Tech was taking the next jump and stuff. We'll see about that. But
yeah,
I still think
that was a rough week 1, man.
Yeah, I still think anyone coming out of the SEC West is going to be that's going to be super surprising. I could see Bama doing it. I could see LSU doing it, but Georgia's just too fucking good.
How long do you think into the year that we're going to go, is Ole Miss for real? And then they shit the bed, because every year they get to 8 because they play no one the first 6 weeks. And then the first top 10 opponent they play or anyone in the SEC with a heartbeat. And then they shit the bed every single year, man. They're a consistent. Don't take this wrong way. They're the Iowa of the SEC. They should be way better. They should have these expectations. And they do occasionally get to the 10-win seasons, but they're never the overall champion.
Yep.
Just never are.
We kind of talked about this before with the SEC being overrated stuff. They're like second tier. I mean, you could say that for Ole Miss. You could say that for Auburn a lot. You could say that, the Floridas of the world since Tebow left, that type of stuff. So
I think LSU should have been top tier this year. That first game, you got to drop them down until Brian Kelly shows you something.
Oh yeah, he's got to win the bigger games. That's all there is.
Yeah.
So, and we'll see. I mean, he settled in during conference last year. So.
Yep, exactly.
We'll see what happens.
I don't know. I would say I'm trying to think anything. I know UCF.
We got Dave's.
What's that?
We got Dave's picks if you want those.
Yeah.
He's got Texas, Big 12, Michigan, Big 10, North Carolina out of the ACC.
Nice.
Yeah. Jumping on that Drake May bandwagon. Georgia, SEC, and USC Pac-12.
Not one of them shocks me. I mean, honestly, North Carolina, they look solid versus South Carolina. If you can come out week 1 and that was the SEC I was trying to think of, or the loss from the SEC. But UNC, if they can keep that offense going again, Mac Brown knows how to win these games. Florida State, I just think is just going to be too efficient with the ball. Golly, their quarterback Travis. He has not had more than 5 interceptions in a year in his career.
Right, I saw that.
I think it went 1 when he played no games, and it was 4-5-4 the last 3 years. The kid doesn't turn the ball over, so that's where I was shocked he turned it over in LSU. I mean, I think they just play. I think that Norville just knows how to play that game.
I agree, and
it's
he looked a lot like Bryce Young, the like slimmer cut, the very accurate, knowing where to go with it type of player. He looked all as advertised leading up to that.
So I think he's going to be up there. I'm really excited to see this year. Just going back to him is when Colorado plays a legit opponent. Because no offense, first 3 weeks here in Nebraska, maybe they'll give him a good game, but I haven't seen anything from Nebraska goes. They're going to be a competitive Power 5 yet. They play Colorado State next week, which I think they got rid of their good punter that you guys faced a couple years ago. So I can't think of anything they have. Once they play USC, if they are 4-0 after playing them, I think that Heisman in our Heisman League, man, I might have to pick up Travis Hunter and just replace one of these quarterbacks just to have a wild card, because I think if they go 4-0, that hype is going to carry them so far, even if they lose 4 games. I think that's one of the few teams this year, because the Heisman is the best player and the best team. That's going to be the one team with the hype that Dion brings that can actually win a Heisman for what it truly is. You are the best player out in the country.
Yeah, and they showed that last year that they're willing to pick a non-playoff player with Caleb Williams.
Yes, it had to be a quarterback, but they they did.
So Shadur Sanders isn't a bad pick either. 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's a pretty damn good week. So
I agree. Well, honestly, we've been yammering for an hour and a half, and I know we could go forever, but I know people don't want to listen to podcasts that are this long. Dave, do you got anything last minute you want to add?
Yeah. The North Carolina pick for my conference winner, I heard Joey say the bandwagon. I don't think it's a bandwagon. I think they could be for real. And I have alternates for Florida State and Kansas State.
Yeah. I said the Drake May bandwagon.
Oh, yeah, Drake May. Yeah.
I would say I think we're okay with you jumping the North Carolina bandwagon. That's fine.
I'm okay with you jumping on either one. Don't let me judge it, man. I like the pick. Going into the season, there was question marks on both lines and then their secondary, but no one was batting an eye at Drake May being it up for the Heisman and stuff. So I think it's a good pick, especially if they can gel.
Yeah. And with Mac Brown there, I think they have a good chance. So.
Last question: you guys got your Swarm beer or Swarm vodka for the game?
I got nothing yet. I can't get that stuff in Missouri, man.
I had another one tonight. I'll probably buy another one for the game, or another 4-pack.
Look at you guys! I'm so jealous.
That's all I've found so far is just 4-packs of them. So. But they're 16-ounce cans. They're tall boys, so
right.
Take it.
This tastes like a 17-9 victory on Saturday.
So taking the under.
Yeah, under Iowa State covers for sure.
17-9. 2
touchdowns and a field goal versus 3 field goals. Or no, hold on, I'll change it for you. A touchdown and a safety for you guys.
Okay.
See, I think you'd be fine to lose that game if it meant you get a safety in the game, Joy. That's, I think, how much you love defense.
Oh, I think my over-under for safeties being okay losing to Iowa State has to be 2.
Okay. 17-4.
2 safeties and a bunch of if Torrey Taylor ends up averaging 70 yards a punt, yeah, sure. Give it to me.
Jesus. All righty. Well, we do appreciate everyone joining us here this week. We'll try and keep it back to Thursdays, but I'll be honest, the Chiefs are playing, so I didn't want to dick around with this on Thursday night. So appreciate everyone joining. We'll catch you next week.
All right. See you guys.